very fashionable about this right now in these times. So how do I ensure that the infrastructure that I'm virtualizing is accessible through any type of connectivity? So I can give a student a laptop, or I can tell him just buy one and connect, but you don't know what quality of connection that student is going to be using. So you need to use one that is designed for the worst type of connection so that you can manage all of them, and the user experience will be there. Savings. Like I was mentioning before, virtual machines are cheaper now. They're not dirt cheap, but they're cheaper than 2 years ago. Right? So, you know, hard disks are getting smaller, faster, and more resourceful. Memory, it's more available. The amount of memory that you can put into a single box is more and more every time. So those steps forward in hardware infrastructure has really helped lower the cost of virtual machines. So, and we have Moore's law to thank, you know, that cost benefit. Every 18 months, resources double in a server, and that will continue to happen. The storage in the data center is getting a little bit cheaper than it used to. Now, I'm not so sure with the issues with the hard disk industry and the shortage that there is out there of hard disks, but once that is stabilized, I am sure that hardware cost for storage will come down again. So some of the places where you can see some of the savings, trouble tickets, there's savings around 30 to 40% on that. Many calls with support, you don't have to put a field services person there, or you don't have to go and fly and take a technician to waste their time on doing some sort of troubleshooting. You can actually just do it in the data center. One of the ways that we're doing it is that I know reboot is never an option, it's never the right way to do stuff, but one of the great things about virtual machines is that, well, let me ask a question out there. When is your desktop the best? So when it is that your laptop, it works the best? When you take it out of the box, right? So you take it out of the box, and after you eliminate all that crappy applications that the manufacturer puts, that desktop just flies. So what if I tell you that every day that you turn on a virtual machine, you are taking it out of the box? Because that virtual machine, because it's separated from the user profiles, from the applications, and from the OS, every time you turn on that virtual machine, it's a brand new virtual machine. When you disconnect of a virtual machine that is not assigned to you, that is in a pool, it's destroyed. And every time you connect, a new one is provisioned to you. So you're not getting problems in memory, internet temporary folders, and crappy cookies, and nothing. It's brand new. So a lot of these calls are gone because of the fact that you're giving a PC that is brand new to that customer. Moves out and changes, that's a thing of the past. Just move anywhere, connect anywhere. Username, any password, your desktop will be there. Patching, no more. You know, we've been able to provision from a single image. So imagine a single image of a desktop. You can provision up to 500 desktops from that one image. So when I need to do an upgrade or I need to do a service pack, I open up that image in a private mode, run my command, do the service pack, do the update, and then close it out. And next morning, when everybody gets their new virtual machine, because it's provisioned from that image, they'll have that. Configuration, upgrades, repair, out. You know, there's people that are fans of thin clients. There are people that hate thin clients. Doesn't matter where you stand. I mean, you can have a full desktop that connects to a virtual machine. You can have a thin client that connects to a virtual machine. The fact is that I bet the virtual machine will give you less effort than that local desktop that you're using to connect to that virtual machine. Data recovery, archiving, backup, you don't need to worry as much in a virtual world. Regression compatibility testing, you're moving to a big version of a software, so you're going from Adobe. What version is Adobe today? 11 or something? 11. So you're going from Adobe 9 to Adobe 11, which is a major upgrade. Yeah. Put it in, if it doesn't work, you just go back to the last one. Right? Just tell your user, disconnect, reconnect. Right? Instead of saying reboot, you just tell them disconnect, reconnect, done. Great thing is that the logon process, you know how Windows machines, after a while, they take like 2 minutes or 3 minutes to boot up? So when you configure all these virtual machines, you have a pool of virtual machines that are ready for customers. So for example, there's a logon storm, right? People come in at 8 o'clock in the morning and like 100 people connect, right? So 5 minutes before, you can tell the system, have 50 machines available. So when they connect, the machine is already booted up. It just needs to log on. And you can do that and have it on a schedule, right? So it's fantastic. I mean, users love virtual machine because they connect and they're like, let's boot it up like in 5 seconds. I mean, they have the perception that it's booting up, but it was already booted. It was just waiting on the hypervisor for somebody to connect. So virtual machines today, they do have optimizations of cost in different places in the data center. Right? Storage has come a little bit down. Servers are more powerful. In the network, right? You haven't realized, but most of the benefit you'll see in the network. Because all this traffic that's going from a device to the network is consuming all that traffic, all that copper wire. When all that traffic happens in your data center, your operating system and your application is connected to the same switch where the database is connected to, so the application runs faster, so that your application responds a lot better, because they're all connected to the same core switch, to the same network in the back end, which is probably like 10 gigs or 1 gig or whatever gigs it is. Things that you cannot afford to have in the endpoint. And on the devices also. So if in Puerto Rico the life cycle of a PC was 7 to 10 years, with virtual machines that they're going to get less wear and tear, it's going to be like 20. I'm going to jump these 2 slides. So, you know, my challenge to you guys are, you should start thinking about how to get away from the PC refresh cycle and talk about, you know, I have a whole bunch of PCs, retain them. Just convert them into a dumb terminal, even though they're a full PC. Or you can also repurpose them. There might be places in your use case scenario where you're going to have to use a desktop, and that's fine. Right? Then you can take some of the desktops that you really don't need somewhere and put them somewhere else. And when those PCs come the time that they break and there are no more spare parts in eBay, then just replace them with another type of device. It could be a thin client. It could be an embedded client. Thin clients come with Windows XP embedded, with Windows 7 embedded. It's better than having a full PC. So those thin clients have no moving parts. So they're a little bit better than full PCs. There's obviously, when you virtualize, there's going to be some benefits in the cost of operations. Sometimes these slides are trickier in a market like Puerto Rico or in a Latin American market because they're done with U.S. data. And U.S. economics don't necessarily apply to Latin America. So my point in this slide is that you cannot see the dollar amounts, you can see the percentages. So if you're saving, 10, 15%, maybe for your organization it's not $150,000, maybe just 15. But it's percentage-wise, it will apply, but not in dollar amount. Right? So, do you guys have any questions up until this point? Good. Easy crowd. So where do you start? How do you start? Yeah, go ahead. I was waiting for that question.
Hi, I'm Omar Rodriguez from Caribbean University. My question is about the licensing, the cost.
That's a fantastic question. I'm always prepared for that one. So
Yeah.
so whoever makes that question should get some sort of a gift.
The cost. That's very important.
The first piece of information that I need to give you is that Microsoft will never lose, ever. Doesn't matter what happens in the world, they will never lose. So it doesn't matter if you're going virtual or physical or back into the ages of UNIVAC, they will not lose. Now, that said, it has gotten a lot better, right? So what type of licensing do you need for a virtual machine? It's a completely valid question. It used to be a little more difficult, but now it's getting a lot better. I can give you suggested retail price. So pricing for campus agreements, I know they're heavily discounted, but you need to check with your enterprise software advisor to make sure of that. So at the operating system level, you need only one license. It's called a VDA, a Virtual Desktop. A stands for something, I'm not sure what it is. And that license is a subscription-based model. So it's a fee every year, okay? So it's actually not like a capital expenditure, but an operational expenditure.
And that fee includes the maintenance or consulting?
Everything. So because it's a subscription-based model, if you're current, you can get access to the next operating system from Microsoft, right?
Yeah, the capacity.
It needs to match the amount of users that you will give a virtual machine to. But it doesn't matter how many virtual machines. It doesn't matter how many virtual machines you're going to give him, right?
I'm Juan C. Martinez from Huerta Junior College. The licensing is package based. I mean, one package for 500 users, the other package for 1,000 users.
That will basically depend on the type of licensing agreement you have with Microsoft, but the cost of a single VDA is $100 per user per year. So that's like the standard price per user per year, and that's it. And that will include access to the latest and greatest operating system from Microsoft. It doesn't matter when it is. Okay, obviously, I'm giving you the price that you can get in the website of Microsoft. It will depend and vary upon the licensing agreement that you individually have. Maybe for you is $70 and for him is 50. I'm not sure. It depends on how good Microsoft was with you that day. Okay. You wanted to add something?
Yes. Hi. I want to add something about the licensing of the VDA. With your campus agreement, Microsoft campus agreement, if you're paying already for the subscription advance, software assurance for the OS, for Windows 7 or XP is already included. So you don't have to buy the subscription, the annual subscription.
So if you have software assurance for your desktop, you already have it.
Exactly.
Okay. So there we covered the desktop, but that's not the end of the story. you need to have applications for it. So each application manufacturer will have their own rules. So Adobe will have theirs, and Visual Studio will have theirs, and AutoCAD will have theirs. Typically, most applications, except Office, are connected base. Right? So if you're using Great Plains or SAP or Blackboard or Banner, is how many users are connected. So if it's a connection-based licensing model, nothing changes for you. Nothing at all. Right? But every single manufacturer every single application has a licensing agreement that you need to check. Okay? So the bigger applications are probably mostly covered because they are connection-based licensing models. Okay? Already. So it doesn't really matter for them. But there are some specialty applications that are very specific that might have issues with. But it's not necessarily a barrier because there's applications still out there that use dongles, for example. So there are electronic-based or virtual-based dongles that you can assign to a virtual machine so that you're in compliance with the application's license. Does that answer your question? Okay. Ya mismo. Ya mismo acabo. So where do you start? You start in the desktop transformation model. This is like sort of the end of the presentation. And it's basically a way to get you from the wow to the how, right? Like we mentioned before, the desktop transformation model is the concept of taking a device-centric mind and changing it to a user-centric mind. And for us in the IT world, it's difficult because we would rather deal with servers than with people. But the fact is that to be able to virtualize machines, you need to deal with people. So virtualizing servers has nothing to do with virtualizing a desktop, right? Because servers that are virtualized are never meant to be connected to. So if you're an administrator and you connect through VNC or through VMware or something, and the screen flickers and it's not the best experience, but you're just there to run a process or turn on a service, you don't care. But if a user connects through that crappy connection and has to work for 8 hours, you're sure to have your phone ring quickly. So virtualizing servers and the fact that you are good at virtualizing servers has nothing to do to the fact that you're going to be successful at virtualizing a desktop. And that's why it's important to go from a device-centric model to a user-centric model. These are the steps or the phases of desktop transformation. So my suggestion when you're going to virtualize machines is pick your battles, Windows battles, and then pick others. So you start with a distributed management. This is where you're at today. Restricted to devices, locations, managing a complex environment. So you want to first start moving to a centrally delivered world. So maybe instead of going out and virtualizing every desktop, you're going to start virtualizing first some of the applications, the most used applications. You bring them to the data center, and you introduce your users to the fact that applications are not in your desktop anymore. They're in the data center, right? And you provide sort of a virtual work style. You give them access to those applications through their mobile phone, through their tablets, so they can start adapting. And then you start taking those desktops in. So you go from centrally delivered to optimally managed. So when you start bringing on those desktops, you start establishing standards in your desktop, right? Some users are going to be able to change their wallpapers, some might not. And you take them in user roles. You take your worst users first. That's where you learn. And then you take your easy users and you start virtualizing their desktops and deploying them out. So optimally managed is I'm combining my virtual machine with my virtual applications, delivering them to any type of device they want in a controlled environment. And every case is different, so you're going to be learning from that process. You're going to learn about printers a lot. And you're going to find out what's the right recipe for you. And then you transform your service, which is basically the place where you start doing provisioning, where you're not going to tell the user, here's your desktop. The user will go somewhere, and he will say, I want a desktop. And the desktop will have these 4 applications. And he will create his own desktop. So you can move to a world where they're actually doing self-provisioning. They go to a website, which is like an app store, and they choose the desktop, the Peachtree desktop. So I want the desktop, I want Peachtree and Excel. And then you connect, fresh desktop with Peachtree and Excel. And it will last for 6 months. So you're transforming the way you manage licensing. You're transforming the way you're provisioning users, deprovisioning users in an automatic way. And this is technology that exists today. We have clients that are provisioning their own thing. When I mean clients, is the teller of a bank. So IT just receives a request from the system, says, Fulanito needs this and this and this, approve. As an IT person, I didn't have to take a device out of the box. I didn't have to create an account for that user in the domain. I didn't have to create an account for that PC in the domain. I didn't have to do any of that. Did not have to do any of that. Somebody approved it. The process created the account, Active Directory, and that was done. The rest was taken care of by my virtual infrastructure. So centrally delivered desktop, people are leveraging their current skills, the process is simplified, the technology is centralizing. Optimally managed, you can repurpose, you can simplify applications, implement single instance. What I was talking about, a managed user profiles. And the service transform, here's an idea, right? A user comes in and he provisions himself, right? Somebody approves it, but he's doing that job himself. Okay? And as you move from one phase to the next, you will see your costs going down, not only from a technology standpoint, but from the way you're investing in your resources. Today, you might have resources doing tactical things because there's nothing for that tactical task to be done automatically. But that same resource has a lot more benefit doing something more strategic for your organization. And you're going to start seeing the lower cost of operations while you move through those phases. For me, this is a 3-step program. You need to identify, assess, and define to achieve the desktop transformation model. When you identify, and this is probably the most difficult and more intensive part of the model, is you need to identify and segment your users. And this is something that not always is an easy task, because user might fall into different places, and you need sometimes to make some choices, right? The end user should be involved so that they can understand where they're at. But you'll find that most of the users will have some sort of this arrangement. You need to understand their apps, their desktops, and their devices, and what role they have. And you start just putting them together. As soon as you do this, then you know what group to start with, right? The second step is I want low risk, high reward. So even though difficult users might seem risky, they actually might provide the highest reward. Why? Difficult users are never happy. So if you try a VM and it doesn't work, they're like, just like yesterday. But if it works, then there's high impact. Because that user that the perception is as a bad user, which is happy, everybody will say, well, if he's happy, I want one. So sometimes the worst type of users are actually the lowest of risk. Because they were not happy to begin with. But from what we've seen, remote workers are easiest and high impact because you're going to give them more. Then office workers, and at the end, mobile workers. And you'll see business impact versus time to value. Okay? And you have your group, you did your assessment, and you did your segmenting and identification of users, then you do your assessment, and from that you'll figure out where to start. And at the end, you need to define some technology roadmap. I don't suggest you take upon this challenge by yourself. You need to make sure that you choose the right partners, that you bring in your vendors, that you're open about your plans. It's incredible how helpful people are when they know what you need or what you want. Sometimes our culture here in Puerto Rico doesn't allow us to be that collaborative because we're thinking that I'm only giving them information so that they can they can do something off the air that I'm going to say. But you know, choose the right partners, choose the right manufacturers, bring them to the table, evaluate multiple technologies, make them do a proof of concept, make them work for the opportunity that they're going to be getting, but don't try to do this alone, because there's a lot of knowledge out there, and you should harness that knowledge that is already out there. There's no reason why to struggle with the same struggles that the previous company had if there's a partner that can help you with that. You know, you have your enterprise software advisors in Microsoft. Microsoft plays a big role in this because of licensing. So all these partners need to be in the same table. They cannot see each other like competition. You just got to sit down, figure out, this customer wants to have a virtual machine world, and this is the way we're going to do it, and you're going to provide this, and you're going to provide that, and you're going to provide that, and everybody needs to work in a team. Because if one piece fails, everything fails, right? And I know it's a little bit tough to do this in the type of environment that we're at, but it's definitely possible. You just need to choose the right people. Some references: Campbell Union High School, savings of $700,000 per year. Desktop replacements, $1,500. Staff efficiency, app upgrades, 10-minute productivity gain for each app virtualized. I'm going to provide this presentation to you, Welke, so that you can put it in the website. If you ask me now, maybe in 2 weeks I'll be able to give it to you. District School Board of Collier County reduced desktop management by 50%. County serves 44,000 students in 50 schools, semi-infrastructure. Solution: VDI delivered 9,000 thin clients with stream desktops. So that will be a local VM with another 8,000 due for rollout. 2,400 HP notebooks in mobile labs with hosted virtual desktops. That was given to students. Scottsdale Community College, I think that's in Arizona, saving $250,000 per year in PC hardware and updates. There's one additional example that we did. Florida Memorial University in Fort Lauderdale. They specialize on like aerospace and aviation schools. They rolled out 1,500 notebooks to their students, and they provided a FMU desktop to them. So these college students, they don't need to have their own PCs or desktops. They just go in, they connect. The funny thing is that they did something very interesting, is that they provide better bandwidth connectivity in the university than when they connect remotely from the internet. So they have actually increased the amount of time that a student spends in the university, because they would rather be there and work better than connect from home and has less bandwidth. That was very interesting, the way they did that. It's like, when one link controls your bandwidth, or you can download so many movies, the same thing. You connect from the outside, your bandwidth would be this. If you're here, it's this, right? So they're rolling out the next phase with 1,500 more, and they did it using netbooks. Right? So conclusions, VDI is just an acronym. It's not a technology. It's not a brand. Actually, we would rather talk about virtual machines and the types of virtual machines that there exist, and each of any one of these could be classified as a VDI. You have a virtual machine that is hosted, that is hosted and shared. So that means that I'm sharing that infrastructure with many other people. If somebody else does something that they shouldn't, I'm going to be affected. There's a hosted virtual desktop or virtual machine, which is dedicated to you at that precise moment in time. So you have better resources and you have better control. It's a little bit more expensive also. You have a streamed virtual machine, which is I can connect from a dumb terminal, and then that virtual machine is going to be streamed to the desktop. It will work, and when you're disconnected, it's killed. And you have a local virtual machine, which is one that you can check in and check out, take with you, and do an offline model. And it can expire, it will synchronize, it will do a whole bunch of stuff. And then you can deploy applications to every VDI that we discussed, virtualizing the application using technology like AppV. And all this stuff can be combined, and that's where it gets interesting. Any questions? Comments? Good. Well, thanks a lot. I am hopeful that this was a benefit to you. I'm just going to give a little bit of time to Andres Santiago, because he has a quick demo that he wants to present. This is not planned, so Murphy could be around. If he's around, then that's fine. If it works, then, perfect. Thanks a lot.
I will steal a couple of minutes. It's just that, like Emilio said, it was not planned, so but I will risk it anyway.